Pennsylvania clay. A bachelor with no estate, but I knew the political way. I served in halls across the sea, a diplomat so grand. I fixed the deals, I played the game, the future in my hand.
They called me North Star, tried to guide them right. A Union man, I'd hold the line with all my will and might. But I believed in compromise, a document's cold art, while the fever in the country grew and tore the land apart.
I'll use the law to douse the flames, I swore my sacred oath.
The most experienced of all the men with no command.
They called him North Star, trying to guide them right. A Union man, he'd hold the light with all his will and might.
But he believed in compromise, a document's cold art, while the fever in the country grew and tore the land apart.
The telegrams from Anderson, I told them hold the fort.
You left them there to starve and see the Confederacy sport.
I had no wife, I had no son, just principles grown cold. And I watched the Union break in two,
a story never sold.
he handed Lincoln a house divided with a legacy of pride.
He wrote a book of excuses, said the states had no right to go, but history's verdict is a cold hard thing, as he was first to know. I acted with pure motives. History will vindicate my memory from the prejudice of the hour.
I was the handsome favorite son from the New Hampshire snow, a statesman's path, a bright new sun, the easiest way to go.
I met my Jane, a fragile soul, with flowers in her hair. We built a world to make us whole, without a single care.
We dreamed of a life in political light,
to serve the nation, do what's right, and never know the wrath. But a darkness trailed our every bliss, a shadow on the stage, a premonition of the abyss on our perfect printed page. And the life we knew lay just ahead, shattered and so pale. We dreamed of a life in political math, to serve the nation, do what's right, and never know the wrath. But a darkness trailed our every bliss,
a shadow on the stage, a premonition of the abyss
on our perfect printed page.
and the life we knew lay just ahead, shattered and so pale. We dreamed of a life in political light,
To save the nation, do what's right, and never know the wrath. But a darkness trailed our every bliss, a shadow on the stage, a premonition of the abyss on our perfect printed page.
train crash.
2 months before the oath,
I saw my boy,
Benny, he, our only child.
I took the oath with a ghost by my side,
My soul was numb and slain,
and I led a nation with nothing but the pain.
we buried the life in political light. I signed the act that split the night and vanished from the board. I failed the union, I failed my name, I failed my own sweet wife, and drank myself into the grave. For the rest of my poor life, there's nothing left.
Curse concord,
From Concord,
we had
everything
to
lose.
a log cabin in the Indiana gloom, a borrowed book by firelight, a mind too tall for any room, haunted by the night. I wrestled with a deep despair, a hypo of the soul, before I ever learned to bear the weight that made me whole.
And they laid the LL on my brow, a crown of blood and steel. heal, a million more were real.
This terrible, this awful weight for union and for man, I signed the papers, sealed the fate, and did the best I can. God, you must choose your instrument.
The war goes on and on,
With malice toward none,
with malice toward none, with charity for all.
to bind the nation's wounds and answer fate's dark call. I saw the future furrowed now beneath a setting sun.
I dreamed of peace, I walked its shore, a task so nearly done. Then a crack of doom and Ford's small door, and my great work was won.
The shield is heavy,
but the Union is.
I was born in a log cabin, a cloth maker's son. Chased the sheep from the pasture, my real life hadn't begun. But I bought a dictionary with my very last cent. Fell in love with a teacher, on ambition we were bent.
Oh, we climbed the ladder made of love.
From Easter or a simple song to a national decor, we never aimed for that highest chair, we just worked to be someone. But fate has a real funny way when all is said and done.
And suddenly my cloth maker's boy was the one who had to save. Oh, we climbed the ladder made of love.
From Easter or a simple song to a national decor, we never aimed for that highest chair, we just worked to be someone. But fate has a real funny way when all is said and done.
I enforced the Fugitive Slave Act, I thought it would hold the peace.
My party wouldn't have me back, my name was dragged through shame.
The boy who climbed so very high, no one would say his name.
We fell from the letter made of LA.
The highest peak we ever saw. As our reputation paled, we never aimed for that highest chair. We just worked to be someone. And history forgot our name when all was said and done. The boy from East Aurora, the president, nobody knows. We climbed so high to be a ghost.
From the Virginia woods I came, a soldier young and lean. I saw the fire of Valley Forge, a vision stark and clean. A disciple of the giants who walked in light before. I picked the torch of liberty up from the war-torn floor. And they called it an era of good feelings, a fleeting moment, calm and still, to heal the nation's ceilings. But I was the last candle burning from the founding flame, watching the new storms gather, whispering my own name. I drew a line across the map, told the old empires no more. A declaration for the West upon a distant shore. I toured the nation north and south, saw the fractures start to mend, but felt the fault lines deep below, waiting for the end. And they called it an era of good feelings, a fleeting moment, calm and still, to heal the nation's ceilings. But I was the last candle burning from the founding flame, watching the new storms gather, whispering my own name. My own name. I saw the Missouri Compromise, a bargain made with dread, a poison pill and parchment sealed for the future to be rid. I stood upon the founding line, the very last to go, and left them with a unity I feared they couldn't hold. From the founding flame, I saw the gathering thunder, and I whispered my own name. The last one to remember the revolution's ember. On the 4th of July, goodbye.
My father was a soldier. His home was army green. He fought down in the Seminole Wars, a man I rarely see.
I fell for a lieutenant, a man named Jefferson Davis, proud and true.
But my father forbade the marriage. He said the army's no life for you.
He was old, up and ready, a hero of the fight. Baby, he promised me a different dawn, a future shining bright. He left the field of battle for a political race,
To save the Union from the storm and find a quieter place. I, Zachary Taylor, never sought this Washington throne.
my sword was my companion, the only power I've known.
They pushed me to the presidency, to hold the line, to be the one. But the compromise they argued for was a battle I could not win.
He was old, up and ready, a hero of the fight. But he promised me a different dawn, a future shining bright. He left the field of battle for a political race, to save the Union from the storm and find a quieter place.
I married my Jefferson against his word, you see.
And you died of fever just 3 months later, taken away from me.
My father's promise broken before he lost control.
He was old, up and ready, a hero of the fight. But he promised me a different dawn and a future shining bright. He ate his cherries, felt so ill on a 4th of July day.
The Union he hoped to save just slipped away. Old, rough and ready, a promise broken by the heat.
A boy who watched the battle smoke from Braintree's quiet lane. My father's name, a constant weight, a legacy of pain. I walked the courts of Amsterdam, a diplomat so young. My childhood was a parchment scroll in many languages sung. And I fought the yelling tide for a vision of a nation with a purpose deep and wide. But they called me cold and stubborn, an aristocrat of thought.
The principles I stood upon were the battles that I fought, to build with light and reason. horizon a future so sublime,
and left him in the gathering dark to face the coming night. And he fought the unyielding tide for a vision of a nation with a purpose deep and wide. But they called him cold and stubborn, an aristocrat of thought.
the principles he stood upon were the battles that he fought.
Then from the ashes of that house a new crusade was born,
To break the gag rule, speak for those in chains and misery.
the one-term president arose at last, completely free. They called him cold and stubborn, an aristocrat of thought. The principles I stood upon are the battles I will fight.
On the floor of the house I fell, but the gag rule fell as well. The tide can be turned and be turned.
In the Virginia soil, a young surveyor's dream, a continent the British read by a fading old world gleam. But the seeds of revolution grew in a heart both proud and true. A nation's hope upon his shoulders, what was he to do? Oh, the weight of the crown on a field of blood and glory, where the lonely cannon sound. I gave my life, my soul, my all for a dream upon the ground. But the scepter is a chain, and this throne is made of thorns for the man who would be nothing on the day that freedom dawned. I've seen the Delaware's black ice, I've seen the valley snow, where hungry frozen patriots had nowhere left to go. I've held the line at Brooklyn Heights, I prayed for Yorktown's son, for a republic, not a kingdom, when the final battles won. Oh, the weight of the power on a field of blood and glory, where the lonely cannon sound. I gave my life, my soul, my all for a dream upon the ground. But the scepter is a chain, and this throne is made of thorns for the man who would be nothing on the day that freedom dawns. They would make me king and emperor, they put me on a throne. But the power of a single man should never stand alone. So I lay this burden down, I set the precedent to serve and then to walk away. that was my intent.
At Mount Vernon, I rest beneath a silent tree. First in war, first in peace, first to set you free. In Braintree soil, a farmer's son with a fire as wig, a stubborn will for a cause he'd helped define. I argued for the soldiers when the mob demanded blood, a principle of justice rising from the Boston mud. Oh, I am the ATLs of Indians, carrying the weight of a world on my own. I argued and I rode while the seeds of war were sown, for a dream not yet a nation, a future yet unknown. I stood with Jefferson and Franklin, I pushed the Congress through. For God's sake, let us declare it, there was nothing left to do. Then I crossed the angry ocean to beg for loans and guns, alone in European courts beneath their mocking suns. I am the ATLs of Indians, carrying the weight of a world on my own. I argued and I rode while the seeds of war were sown, for a dream not yet a nation, a future yet unknown, a future yet unknown. Took the helm, the storms had just begun. The Alien and Sedition Acts, my legacy undone. My own proud, stubborn nature built the walls on every side, with a rival and a friend in Monticello, where our partnership had died. my work was done. My story told. A boy from the Waxhaws, carved by the sword, a prisoner of the redcoats, who never said a word. This temper and this honor, a scar upon my face, a frontier fire burning to seize my rightful place. They call me Old Hickory, a man of will and wrath. I fought the banks and empires and cleared my own dark path. But the specters of the nation in the Georgia clay I sown, and the locket that I wear now is a love I've always known.
He brought me from the taverns, gave me his noble name, to shield me from the slander, to spare me from the shame. But the politician's venom struck before my time and left him with a sorrow, an everlasting cry.
They call me Old Hickory, a man of will and wrath.
He fought the banks and empires and cleared his own dark path.
But the specters of the nation in the Georgia clay I sown,
And the locket that he wears now is a love he's always known. I saved New Orleans from the shell, the people cheered my name.
the Cherokee must go, I said, for the Union to stand tall.
A necessary grief, the darkest call of all.
Now remember Old Hickory,
A man of will and wrath,
who fought for his America
and walked a bloodstained path. The specters of my legacy in history are sown, and the locket round my neck now is the only peace I've known. My Rachel, wait for me at the Hermitage. Your battles are over. The nation is safe.